Sorry about that, everyone. So frustrated in this match. I didn't even think you needed to hear the F-bombs or disdain starting from you. So I'll start this one over. Good afternoon, everyone. Morning if you're following us on the West Coast. And yeah, so we're going to try here to have a formidable post-match review of that debacle that we all just watched. From a Manchester United standpoint, they are buzzing. We have only ourselves to blame, in my opinion, Maka. We are, for anyone coming in, you are watching the American Scouser TV post-match analysis show, where we like to recap what we just saw. And I don't know I can put it into words, so I will turn it over to the Irishman on this St. Patrick's Day. What in the bleep just happened?
I think it started from the first half at least, and getting to half time. We saw very, very quickly Diaz wasn't working on the left side because he just hogs the ball the entire time like a 10-year-old street soccer player. And we were getting absolutely shellacked on the right side, and Gomez wasn't probably the right player to be there because he was playing it like Trent. He was getting into the midfield and doing the stuff from there, and we weren't built to do that, and he's not built to do that. So that should have been changed at half time. We did enough to get ourselves back into it, and those changes I think should have been made to fix the right and then to make the attack more fluid. And we did. We got the 2 goals, and then we took our top goal scorer off, and the biggest threat we have. And then suddenly, it felt like free to attack because there was nothing coming on the other end because Nunez wasn't in the game. Diaz, they just had to wait for Diaz to do his 50 millionth flick and shoulder drop and give the ball back to them. And then, we had Szoboszlai, who was, he could have not been on the field, and I don't think we would have been affected at all. But this at the start, this was on the manager because we could all see things weren't working, and it's on the manager to change them. Maybe not in a Brendan Rodgers, I'm going to humiliate the player by doing it at 17 minutes kind of a style, but definitely at half time when it's clear you have an advantage and you should press it. Then we got into these ridiculous situations of 5-on-2s and 4v2s where a good, not want to say a good team, we are obviously a good team, but a better attacking cohort with, like, say, Mane and Firmino. If those two were on the field on Jota, I don't see us missing those. And we come out with this with 4-1 and we're all delighted. But running in the wrong spaces and just not taking advantage of them.
Yeah, well said. I want to thank everyone who's watching us right now, whether you're on YouTube, you're coming to us on Twitter, formerly Twitter and X, or you are filming or watching us live on Facebook. I'm going to drop the link into the chat to our YouTube channel. Please feel free to go over there and give it a subscribe. Check out all the new content. You'll see that there's a lot of great things happening here at the channel regarding pre and post match. It feels a bit like a funeral, and it isn't, right? It isn't a funeral to this season. We have a lot to play for. We already have a piece of silverware in the bank. We have the league that is still up for grabs, and of course, the Europa League competition that we are one of the betting favorites in. But I have to admit, it's a little extra of a sting in the tail, I think, when one, it's United. 2, you had 2 leads, including one with less than 5 minutes left to go in extra time. And I think, 8 minutes left to go in regular time. And when you add in all the spurn chances United had, this feels like you not only let United off the hook, you put a little life back into them. You gave them something to play for. Your biggest rivals, your supporters don't want to have to watch a Wembley final where it might be United versus City. It's bad enough there's a shot that it could be Chelsea there again for a second time this season with a chance at silverware. So how much of this to you, the bitterness, resides on it being United compared to just how much we actually beat ourselves instead of allowing a competitive team to beat us in what was a feisty cup match?
No, I mean, it's the fact that it doesn't make any difference to me in that sense, because we just played so badly. If we'd have done that against Coventry, I'd feel the same, because the flaws that we get sometimes in some of the players that we get sometimes criticized for pointing out on the show, where you have to put content on for it to be a show, which means you have to look at the good and the bad, came out. All of the bad things that we worried about came out at once. So it wouldn't have mattered who it was. If United had outplayed us, that's a different matter, because you don't want to be outplayed, by your biggest club rivals. But they didn't. We gave them the chance to win, and it was, it was just frustrating to watch players that have come from behind so often to be playing badly, put themselves in a great position, and then the combination of both the coaching staff and the players went to take snatch the victory the defeat from the jaws of victory, because it could have been a high scoring win for Liverpool, but it wasn't, and the problems weren't fixed, and the players weren't fixing them. As much as Virgil was shouting at everybody to get their heads in the game several million times.
Yeah, it did feel like it was a tough afternoon for everyone, including Virgil. Not tough from his play, but I think his style of leadership is well documented. His overall class and calmness on the ball adds to everything that makes him great. And when he gets fiery, I think he can get in a player's ear, get in a player's ass. I want to get to the manager's substitutions in the second half. But before we do that, a couple talking points on the pre-match show for anyone who was with us. I mentioned I would have started Elliott over Szoboszlai. I genuinely feel like if it wasn't for how poor Diaz has been in the final third in some of his decision-making over the last 2 to 3 weeks, that we would literally be talking nonstop about how Szoboszlai is as much a liability as he is a beacon of creativity and class when we see the good. And I genuinely think today was some of Szoboszlai's, like, at times, I know he's, had a few moments where he popped up, but it just seemed like he picked the final ball incorrectly. There were 2 or 3 times in the first half he had a chance to slip in Mo, and he took long, speculatively decision-making shots, which I didn't love. Speaking of speculative decisions, let's bring in the boss. Oh, my man. This one must be sitting in your craw, because as an ex-defender, to watch the mistakes made both by Nunez and Elliott as attacking players to basically put on more work on defenders. It wasn't a great second half defensively, in my opinion, by the side. I don't think Klopp helped that with some of the substitutions. I was just talking to Maka here about Szoboszlai starting. I'll flip the question to you. Let's talk about the substitutions that were made. Can you wrap the head around the Robertson and Mo coming off when you need both leadership and a little bit of drive and fire on the pitch?
I mean, I guess we want to assume it's minutes, like minute restrictions after Mo having to play 90. That's what I assume with Mo. Why we did Robertson, even if it is for the same reason, I don't know why Kostas doesn't come in for Robertson personally. Just because I felt like we just screwed over that matchup that seemed to be working fine until then, with Gomez on the right, with covering that side, and then Robertson on the other side. So if Robertson can give you 90, why we didn't put Kostas there, I do not get. Yeah, the substitutions, like I say, the only reason I can think of it is minute restrictions, and these guys could not do it. I guess that takes us back to some of the decisions made for Thursday, but that's a different story.
Could it have been Ramadan, though? As well, we forget it was like 6:30 over there, 5:30 or something like that.
Oh yeah, good point. I mean, not to mention that affects how you can play too, right? If he's fasting.
That's a really good point. We don't know. He might have told him I only have 80 in me or 70 in me with the fact that I'm fasting. The look on Mo's face, he looked as surprised as Robertson was when his number came up on the board. So it didn't look to me like he gave the bench any kind of indication that he needed to come off.
Yeah.
Let's stick on the match itself before we talk about the late drama and the flashpoints between Nunez, Elliott, Rashford's huge misses. I mean, let's be honest, we were lucky to see extra time after they were kind of lucky to get level twice. So let's start with our goals in the first half. I thought Nunez was causing some chaos to them, was a little bit bright, was creating. He obviously gets the assist on the first goal and takes the hard shot that, Onana has to just get a palm up to. It was a good shot on target that leads to Mo's tap in for the second one. We seemed like we still let them off the hook, though. There were opportunities in the first half. I thought Diaz's decision making in the final third, like I don't know if it can get much worse than it has been. I thought he was poor in the first half. I thought the second half, and Maka, I'll go to you on this one because I think you flat out called it like ball hogging, street soccer. Like he basically is playing a game by himself, which only makes everyone else. It only makes everyone else's job harder. And, it was Diaz who turned the ball over late in the match that almost sent Rashford through in stoppage time to level it before they actually got the leveler. So how much of this is down to Diaz's lack of confidence, or is this just the Diaz that he is?
No, I mean, it's not lack of confidence because you have to have confidence to think you can take everybody on and score the winning goal all the time.
Good point. Overconfidence.
Overconfidence, yeah. I think that's just how he plays. And I don't think it works all the time in a system that's based purely on teamwork, which is what our system is. It's about giving yourself, like we talk about Núñez in terms of the goals and stuff, but he puts the work right in to cause all that chaos when he doesn't have the ball. Like Diaz will quite frequently, and he did it a few times today, give up on a ball that was going out for a throw in that maybe he might have kept in if he'd have just kept sprinting. It's all about him for Diaz, and he's just one of those players. He's going to get the ball, and he'll only give it away when he cannot do any more. And usually that means he's giving it away in a position where he's outnumbered. And if he doesn't get the pass right, it's a counter attack instantly. If we're having Michael Edwards coming in and a whole new manager, I'd put him on the transfer list if that was still a thing and just get rid of him, because there are better players out there that can give us what Diaz gives us at his best, but also don't have the flaws of what he gives us when he's at his worst.
Trevor Utley chimes in, and if you are watching us right now, do what Trevor's doing. Join in like Sparky Parky, and we'll even read your foul language tweets on a day and messages on a day like today. So Trevor Utley, he had Delot off balance so many times and just refused to shoot. Incredibly frustrating. And Trevor added in late on as a specific. And Sparky Parky jumped in with, how fucking bad were we? So fucking bad, you probably need an extra fucking in there, to be honest. If this was porn, there'd be a whole shit ton of fucks. Because that was really, really a bad afternoon at the office. So let me ask you, Timuchin, if you were slicing up the famous Timuchin blame pie, what is the piece that we're serving to Darwin? What is the piece that we're serving to Soboslai, really, for that lackluster first half performance? And ultimately, how much of that pie are Klopp's decisions laid on filled into it?
I mean, I really put this game like throughout the match itself as well, like how it's played out. I mean, I mentioned Discord too. I put it on the front three, and then you can kind of add Soboslai to that as well, because I mean, there were so many times where I did not know who was playing where, which is really odd because they were on the opposite side pressing, and then their side was empty. The press in the first half, I mean, I feel bad for McAllister and Endo, who I thought were above average and probably are like some of our better players. And I feel like you can almost like separate this team to the back six and the front four, and the front four never gave you what they should. I mean, let's face it here. Yes, they miss. I mean, Rashford misses a couple of them that he should probably finish. 2 of our goals are deflections. So it's not like, we were... And then the chances we got, we never capitalized on. I think Cam was talking about it in Discord, and I couldn't agree more. This team's bread and butter was, we take the lead, we have you come at us, and we're just going to kill you. The moment you start attacking, we're just going to kill you with speed, precision. And it goes back to what I think Mecca is saying. Sometimes that ball is released too late. It's just like a bunch of players. There's one that Gakpo is coming with. I think that's a 4-on-2 or something like that. Just put it in front of Núñez. He is gone. And if nothing else, he's taking a player with him, and you only had 2 anyway. So now it's going to be 3-on-1 unless he doesn't take it out and crosses it in. It's just extremely poor decision-making, obviously lost balls. But before you even get to those, I really felt like in the first half, our press was all over the place. I mean, that's the difference between this game and against the City game, where we did not let them play at all. If you have United play football against you, that's kind of scary, and that talks to the the press. And I know, like I say, I agree with Sparky to a certain extent that for not fixing it, because it was very apparent, I thought, because that did not change throughout the game. It's just the momentum changed throughout the game. I never thought, oh, our pressing is great again at any given point in the game, to be honest.
Yeah, I felt that Klopp has to take some of it. I mean, the players do too. I mean, you go out there and you put in a shit performance, the players have to take it. You had 2 separate leads and then gave up 2 goals in the last 10 minutes of extra time to lose a match on the road that was going to penalties. So I do believe that the subs, as Sparky Parky jumps in, he's reading my mind. The subs were terrible. And in a year in which we are giving him so much credit, mainly because it's our last chance to give him such credit, for always having his finger on the pulse of the side, making the right substitutions, pulling, getting so much out of these kids. This felt like an opportunity today to do things a lot different. And it felt like I hate saying it because Klopp is so one game at a time. We play one match and they knew they had 2 weeks off, but it almost felt in some ways like he took it for granted a little bit that no matter what happens here, we'll find a way to beat this United side. We just have more class. It'll work. And it almost did. I mean, when Elliott scores that goal, you think to yourself, Jesus, this is going to feel like a smash and grab taking 3 points. I think, Maka, you said it, as soon as they leveled at 2, you felt they would lose. Jamie says the loss is on all of them, albeit for us to have to pick a person to put any blame or talk about. But as an analysis point, I don't think he's far off. I do think it's on the whole side. I don't think there's much more Virgil or Kwanzaa could have done. I thought they were very good at the back most of the match. I didn't like all the types of it felt like the tactics were all over the place at times. And to Timuchin's point, they felt like they were just like playing helter-skelter everywhere. So, Maka, get back to you on this one. Cody Gakpo comes on, kind of had a lackluster affair. Timuchin pulled out one of them. There was another opportunity where he can either send, I think it was Elliott down the right, or he could cross it. He decides instead to shoot, and Onana makes a easy save. Is it lack of confidence with Gakpo? Is it lack of drive? Like, what is it? Because it's starting to come from all angles. I know I was there for a bit, but I think there was also, it's starting to swell where people are questioning, does Gakpo have the drive, passion to actually make an impact here when playing? As Sparky Parky says, did Gakpo come on? And I think sometimes the only thing worse than having someone say your performance was a 0 was say that your performance was invisible and, incomplete.
Well, here's how I always delineate between somebody who's lacking confidence and somebody who's lacking drive. Somebody who's lacking confidence on the ball will still do their defensive work, and they'll work hard, and they'll say to themselves, it might not be working with me on the ball, but I'll make sure I don't let the team down when we don't have it. Gakpo doesn't do that. He just walks around. It's like he's hoping for, like Matt Letizia, he's hoping for that moment of magic that makes him look great. But it's everybody else's job to do the hard yards after that. I would get rid of him. I don't like players like that. I don't think they add anything, and I don't think there's any upside. I don't think it's any different than United with what's his name?
Anthony.
No, not Anthony.
Nope.
Oh, come on.
Fernando.
No, Juventus midfield, Paul Pogba. It's no different than Paul Pogba, just wandering around and hoping reputation saves him. So for me, if he worked hard off the ball, I'd say, yeah, it's a confidence thing, but he doesn't even do that. He's just that's why we give Núñez more of the benefit of the doubt, because he does work for the team when we don't have it. Gakpo is that's why he's invisible. He's not doing anything either side of the ball. So for me, he's a bust as a transfer. I wouldn't waste any more time or money on him.
One thing, I think I don't know. He looks so lost to me, and I don't know if that's all on him. We talked about it in the past where he's played all over the place. I don't even know where the hell he's supposed to be half the time. But one thing I don't like about him is he's that guy that tries to put a foot on the ball, regardless of if they're going to win or not. And a couple of times that ball goes the wrong way. Yeah, you got a foot on it, but it goes the wrong way. Like you're not winning the ball, you're just basically sticking a foot out, and then that ends up almost like being like a turnover. And I think that their third goal came because of something similar to that in the middle of the field. I don't know if Gakpo was involved, but it kind of like everybody tried to put a foot on the ball, and then suddenly we lost it. I don't know. I mean, I know what Maka is saying. I just feel like he looks lost, and when we had him before, we said he was the better presser earlier in the season compared to Nunez. And that's why we're talking about him. So we know it's there. I just feel like it's not coming out because he looks just confused in terms of like where to go, what to do, when to press, when not to press, and stuff like that. And let's face it, if you're not pressing as a whole, you might as well not press. And I feel like that's where he's at there, where I don't know where to press, so I'm not going to open up a space. I'm just going to jog around in the vicinity over here, not get in the action.
I mean, it could be
Trevor Utley jumped in with Gally. You said it with Diaz. He was miserable going forward, but kept trying to track back. Gakpo gave below nothing. And as always, get your comments in. We'll try to bring them up on screen. I will guarantee you, if you agree with me, they will find their way on screen. Tanuchin, let me go back to you with this one. We've had this conversation on the Monday night podcast in the past, and with the news of his imminent return, is today the exact example of a match that you absolutely need Jota to be part of this side? Because if Mo has to come off, you bring on a match winner. It felt like he left Nunez on in a game where he would have taken Nunez off to give him some minutes and some breather. And, and I'm not trying to defend Nunez's mistake late, but he was still working hard, even tracking back in an area he shouldn't have been, making flicks and tricks where, I think that is great even when you are on dead legs and you're 110 minutes in. Supposedly Nunez was waving to the bench at one point because he was so cramped in the first extra time. It looked like he was almost asking to come off. Is this where you miss Jota so much that you genuinely really need that goal scorer back? Because it felt like they weren't going to create a goal today, to your point. They needed United to either make a mistake or have deflections. There were no clinical finishes. There was no real great, insightful attack. It just felt like once Mo came off, it was a hope and a prayer, and we were trying to hang on.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When we talked about it, the guy that we need back the most, I really think is Jota. Because, the people you're missing, the people you're going to get back after this international break, Konate, Trent, and stuff like that, they're all great. But I think the guy that's going to really change a gear and make a huge difference in tactics is probably Jota. I honestly think he probably starts today. And if he starts today, that press is better. And I think, obviously you're a lot more clinical. That's one thing that he has is being clinical. And not only finishing wise, we always talk about his finishing, but I mean, think of some of the through balls he's put onto Mo and stuff like that from the left-hand side. He can pick the pass and he knows what to do in the final third. So we are definitely missing that. And going back to, like Sparky says, taking Mo for Gakpo was the game changer. And I do agree to that because we talked about this before. Because once Mo goes off, that left-hand side disappears too, because we had it knocked in the City game. We were talking about that, how the left-hand side came alive and stuff. So, I know, man, it's extremely frustrating because I felt like despite playing like shit, because it was United, we had this game twice and gave it away. But let's be honest, at the end of the day, based on performance and based on how our goals came and based on some of the misses they had as well, we just did not deserve this at the end of the day. It's hard to kind of be mad at the soccer gods on this one.
So the draw is out. We weren't going to get all excited about it, but we will talk about it. In some ways, I'm happy for the good folks of Coventry because they get their day at Wembley against the weakest of the sides left in this thing, and they get Manchester United. So they have a legitimate shot to find the final with Chelsea taking on, paired up against City. And I think that's an interesting one because City has not done well against Chelsea. I think they drew them twice this year. Chelsea seems to have a good knack to play City, and obviously we know Cole Palmer, except for a few people in our Discord channels, has probably been the signing of the season in the Premier League and a revelation at Chelsea. He'll probably be up for to play his ex-team. Obviously, we're all firmly rooting for Coventry to advance to the final and potentially win this thing when you have to stomach the idea of the supporters of Chelsea, Man United, or City listing another trophy. What do we think? I will disagree wholeheartedly with this, because if you saw the Chelsea match today, yes, they're open, but I think Coventry has a better chance against United because of the way United plays, and United struggled with Newport in the last round. The smaller side teams that set up the way they do, I think, are actually a tougher out for United, but we'll have to see. Taking that aside, what does this now mean for the rest of the season as we start to wrap this one up?
I'm just thinking of like a Coventry City final would be a proper like 1970s, 1980s FA Cup final. That would be so like nostalgic to watch that. Like, and maybe they can all borrow Luton's short shorts to make it real. But I mean, for City, I think they'll beat Chelsea, so they'll have that going forward. And I'm sure Pep wants to win another Champions League. So they'll put a bit more into that if it looks like there's any sort of gap at the top. So I think for the City side of things, it helps us a little bit. And the further them and Arsenal go into those European competitions helps us. For United, I mean, they might think their name's on the trophy. That's the scary thing. As bad as they've been this season, they might think their name's on that trophy now because they beat us in the quarterfinals, as I think Cosy said before in the pre-match. This was their cup final.
Yep.
So I don't. For us, I just in our scheme of things, I just hope that it doesn't affect us a little bit to be out of that competition and play so badly doing it that it affects all of the other things, especially with the big narrative of Klopp, finishing that finals and being able to say his goodbyes. But who knows?
Ask you this, I'll throw you the same one. What negative or positive, how does this impact, or maybe it doesn't at all, for you, how does this impact Liverpool's, they're still, right there at the top or near the top of the Premier League table. They're obviously right there as the favorites of the Europa League. It's 2 less matches you got to play, and also means another fixture not getting rearranged and having to play a midweek fixture towards the tail end of the season. I'm trying my hardest to find some positives here. Could this be a galvanizing moment after the international break to let these guys kind of stew on a bad performance and get back at it cracking? Or could this one have a little bit of a hangover and really affect the Premier League specifically, in my opinion, that run-in?
No, I don't think it affects anything else at all, especially with people coming back, as long as something crazy doesn't happen during the international break, so knock on wood there. But I really think, like Ryan is saying, this team is too experienced for it to affect them, for one. And it wasn't like the only thing we had going, like Mecca was saying about, or I think Alakazi was saying it as well, about like United with the FA Cup. I really think it has zero impact in terms of that. And really, in some ways, the international break could not come at a better time, because I think you kind of sit down and say, okay, yeah, we sucked. We didn't deserve that one. I don't think any of the guys, I think the boys will agree that they did not play well. I don't think, it's not going to be newsflash to them. I think they're going to be a lot more focused now. We still have these 3. We have the international break. Let's regroup. Kind of like you said, less fixtures now. And let's just go out and play. And I think that's, in some ways, it probably, I don't know if it helps, but I don't think it hurts it at all.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. I just wanted to see your take on it. The horrible thing, as Dom Smith says, is that City are going to piss it now. We're the only ones who will give them a game. And I actually agree with him. I think you can almost start to etch City's name into this trophy at this point. If there's one thing that Pep has done, if Pep has brought one really quality thing to English football, is he's taken every opportunity to be ruthless and win trophies. And I think in some ways he challenged the big clubs like us and other clubs to take these tournaments seriously, because we'd put out a weakened side and lose in the 3rd round of the FA Cup in January when we didn't even need to rotate that much. And then Pep would go on and win it and kind of stick it in people's faces. I saw a ridiculous stat. This will be his 36th match at Wembley since coming here. It's ridiculous. It's crazy.
How funny would it be if that's the only trophy they win, though, this season?
It is, but I will say, Timuchin said this once before about Arsenal last year, that he really felt getting knocked out of Europe hurt them in the league. I think staying alive and having us out of this and having a real belief that they may become the first club ever to win back-to-back trebles, including the European title, is another thing for them to try to strive for in this whole like record of greatness that they have. They have a really tricky tie with Real Madrid. It was the toughest competition they could have got in the next round, in my opinion. And then if they win that, they got to go up against Arsenal probably, or Bayern. So it'll be really interesting to see how the Champions League shakes out. So for all of us here at American Scouser TV, I want to thank all the viewers today, both pre-match and post. If you aren't already, I put the link in right at the beginning on here. Get over to YouTube and please give the page a subscription. Check us out on Instagram. We are on Twitter, or X, formerly Twitter. We are on Facebook. As Maka would say, if there is a medium for your kid to create a username and password, we have some content on it. So get out there to the socials. Please like, subscribe, share, comment. If you want to get involved, send us a message. We'll be back tomorrow night. We'll extend this funeral to a second evening when Timuchin, myself, and Bickler arrive for our Monday night podcast. It's live at 8 p.m. every week on Mondays. And, of course, they'll be back with the Morning Coffee Show to go over all the news from around the football world tomorrow morning, as I like to say, with Timuchin and friends. So you never know which friends are going to show up, but you always know they will be there. He even keeps his shoes on, so it's not like one of them creepy Mr. Rogers beginnings. Sadu has already promised that we shall meet tomorrow, which makes me excited, which basically means he'll find a way to blame today's loss, probably on Curtis Jones and his play in the midfield. All right, everyone, for all of us at American Scouser TV, thank you as always for watching the show. Have a great week, and as Maka would like to say, it's time for the outro.